South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has survived a parliamentary vote on whether he should face an impeachment inquiry over the controversial Phala farm scandal. The motion to adopt a report and launch a full investigation into its findings against Ramaphosa was easily defeated on Tuesday at the 400-member National Assembly by 214 votes to 148 with 2 abstentions. A total of 201 MPs needed to pass the motion tabled by the African Transformation Party for Parliament to adopt it, and even though the African National Congress, ANC, had told its MPs to block a possible impeachment, a handful of ruling party MPs sided with opposition parties. After the vote, South Africa's opposition parties kicked against the process and accused the ANC parliamentary caucus of shielding the president. Take a listen.
The wrong side of the issue today was to slavishly defend the president from any form of accountability. And I think the ANC have made a terrible blunder today, and it's going to follow them all the way into 2024. Just as Nkandla was a rotting corpse on the back of Jacob Zuma, so too is Phala going to be a rot. The wrong side of the issue today was to slavishly defend the president from any form of accountability. And I think the ANC have made a terrible blunder today, and it's going to follow them all the way into 2024. Just as Nkandla was a rotting corpse on the back of Jacob Zuma, so too is Phala going to be a rotting corpse on the back of President Ramaphosa going into the 2024, facing a far more united opposition.
He's presiding over a party that has got no regard for the constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We were not saying the president is guilty today. We're saying let's give the president an opportunity to give an account to the people of South Africa. He said no himself, his party said no. So they've got no regard for the constitution of the Republic.
Now that President Ramaphosa has survived the vote, his next challenge will be to push his bid to win re-election at his party's conference. Now, joining me live from Johannesburg, South Africa, to discuss and unpack all of this is Themba Godi. He's the president of the African People's Convention. And I also have Sello Lediga, political columnist, both joining from Johannesburg. A warm welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on the conversation.
Good evening.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Sello. What do you make of the fact that President Ramaphosa pulled a Houdini and survived the parliamentary vote? There was a point in the last few weeks that people thought, he was going to resign following the publication of the Section 89 report.
And your viewers, let me remind everyone that last week, Thursday, we now know that a letter of resignation had been written by the president. Unfortunately for him, his supporters, especially his cabinet ministers, persuaded him to withdraw the resignation and fight on, So what you are seeing today, is the fight on of the president who nearly left office because of Phala. So the issue is, yesterday, he survived the impeachment process that would have been initiated from Parliament by simply using the raw power of the majority of the African National Congress in South Africa. And I must indicate that surely, if one looks at it, it was really constitutionalism versus real politics, So we think that he has actually survived mainly because he is the leader of a majority party, and that takes the matter to the next stage, And let people not misunderstand this. The Phala issue is not dead. It's only the parliamentary process that was trying to lead to impeachment that is terminated. There are still other organs of state that are still investigating the president, But I think it is also interesting to note that this happened only 2 days, before the National Conference of the African Nation, which is the big thing, the biggest thing, Had he resigned on Thursday, most probably it would have been difficult for him to stand for election in the Congress. Now we know that his party is strong, and then we saw yesterday those that tried to betray the party did not make it, and we are told that they'd be dealt with. So we're waiting for Friday for the show to go on now, for not from Parliament, but at the National Conference of the ANC.
Thank you, Sello. I'd like to bring in Themba. Now, Themba, did you expect to see such high-ranking ANC members in open vote saying what they said yesterday in the parliamentary proceedings? And also, will any disciplinary measures be taken against the ANC MPs who voted against the party's official position on the issue?
Well, I was not surprised, firstly, by the overall outcome, as well as the dissent that some of the senior members displayed, because the divisions within the majority party run very, very deep. And that act of defiance is a reflection of the extent of the factionalism. But secondly, this has a precedence. You will recall that the previous president, when he faced similar challenges in parliament, some of his staunchest opponents actually voted against the directive of the organization. In fact, it's almost like the flip of a coin. Those who were staunchly in favor of the former president are some of the people who yesterday defied the organization. And yet, some few years back, those who are staunchly behind the current president were the ones who were defying the party at that particular time. So, no, it's not surprising. It reflects the level of divisions within the party.
Now, will disciplinary measures and actions be taken against this MPs that voted against the party's official position?
Well, look, I think it all depends on the outcome of the weekend conference. If President Ramaphosa emerges as a winner, I'm sure his supporters will be paying for blood. If he loses, those who defied the current party directives will be seen as heroes.
Sorry to interject, Themba. The results of the conference that is going to happen in 2 days' time, not following the majority he won in Parliament, don't you think it's a given that, you know, he would emerge as the national leader of the party?
Well, look, what happened in Parliament yesterday is the triumph of democratic centralism, which has been the norm with almost all the parties in Parliament, including the ANC. During the most difficult times of President Zuma, the majority of their MPs held the line for the president. So it was not surprising that this time around, the majority held the line for the party in line with what the leadership had decided. But the weekend elections, cannot be judged purely and solely on the basis of what the
happened in Parliament
decided. Yes.
Okay, thank you, Themba. I'd like to bring in Sello. Now, Sello, I know you said in your opening statement that Phala issue is not dead, but the South African National Assembly Speaker, Novisiwe Mapisa-Nkunkula, declared that the inquiry will therefore not be proceeded with. Does this effectively bring Phala scandal to an end? And what other avenues are there to resurrect this issue? Because it seems like it's something that President Cyril Ramaphosa can't just get off his back.
No. When you look at our constitution, what you have seen is just a parliamentary process. And number one, there's a very important organization called the NPA, National Prosecuting Authority, which is seized with this matter, and its report is expected, soon. And then you've got the public protector in South Africa. It also has to produce its report. You've got SARS, which is South African Revenue Service, as well as the Reserve Bank. At least 5 or 7 institutions will still be seized with this matter, irrespective of the parliamentary process. This was just a matter for the 400 South Africans who are in Parliament. It's got nothing to do with other state institutions that are looking into.
So, Sello, for the sake of argument, let's say 3 or 4 of this, of these institutions come out and say, President President Ramaphosa has something to answer. He needs to, he's found guilty or wanton. Would he not go back to Parliament, and are we not going to have another vote? Or
No.
how would he?
No.
Or you just expect him to do the needful and resign?
No. What will happen is that his party, the African National Congress, has got a policy that if you are charged, you step aside from all your official duties. So if he gets charged, if you wake up one morning and he has been charged, it means he must actually relinquish whatever position he holds, in the party and also in the state. So that will have nothing to do with, he can't run back to Parliament and say, save me, because it will be a different institute or agency that will have fun. You see, the difficulty with the ANC is that it has put itself in a corner, in the sense that it says once you are charged, you must step aside. It does not even say you have to be convicted.
Just charged?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
and that's what happened to the Secretary General of the ANC.
Now, Themba, the Justice Minister, Ronald Lamola, trashed the report, the Section 89 report, and says there's no sufficient evidence to impeach the president. The panel report has set the bar too low to impeach a sitting president. These are his words. Do you think if the Section 89 report was more conclusive and thorough, the outcome of yesterday's parliamentary vote would have been different, or will the ANC still protect their own regardless?
Well, I think it is the first time that a process to impeach a president was undertaken. So a lot of the staff, the processes, are really being tested at this particular point. I think when Parliament drafted the rules, I think they had President Zuma in mind at that point, without realizing that it is something that is going to remain there forever. Now, my reading of the process was that the panel was not supposed to, or is not necessarily expected to be as conclusive as a process that has had witnesses, because by its very nature, it is supposed to deal only with documents that are before it. And all it needs to do is in terms of my understanding of those rules, and now there may need to be another interpretation. It's that they need to say to Parliament, yes, we think there is something you can probe. Because it's not as if the work of the panel is to pass judgment on whether you are guilty or not, and its judgment is final. No, it is a preliminary process to say to Parliament, look, we don't think there's anything to look at here, or to say, no, we think there is something to look at. It's only when a parliamentary committee is in place that will then make a final and firm determination. I thought the couching of the report at the level of recommendations was very deliberate, and I felt it was appropriate in line with what I understood to be their mandate. But I think with this report, there will have to be a relook to try and fine-tune and tighten certain areas so that going forward there could be unanimity and clarity on what is expected from such a committee.
Okay, let's take a listen to the opposition parties, the major opposition parties' response to this issue, and then I'll come back to you, Sello. Do we have okay.
Defend the president from any form of accountability. And I think the ANC have made a terrible blunder today, and it's going to follow them all the way into 2024. Just as Nkandla was a rotting corpse on the back of Jacob Zuma, so too is Palapala going to be a rotting corpse on the back of President Ramaphosa going into the 2024, facing a far more united opposition.
He's presiding over a party that has got no regard for the constitution of the Republic of South Africa. We were not saying the president is guilty today. We're saying let's give the president an opportunity to give an account to the people of South Africa. He said no himself, his party said no. So they've got no regard for the constitution of the republic.
Now, Sello, opposition parties presented a largely united front on the issue, like we heard Julius Malema there. The leader of the second largest opposition Economic Freedom Fighters Party expressed deepest disappointment in President Ramaphosa. Are there any other available channels for the opposition to mount a challenge to this vote? Or as Ms. Nkunkula's declaration effectively sealed any possibility of a challenge? I know you addressed that earlier. So I would also want to ask if, 2024 is a long time. It's still in politics. It's not a long time, but it's 2 years from now. Can the opposition take advantage of what is happening now to work in their favor in 2024?
Yeah, remember, the opposition is not only confined to parliament. As you know, our constitution and our government rest on the three arms of the state, of the judiciary, of the legislature, and of the executive. So somehow the opposition will continue to go to the courts and try whatever means they have to hold him accountable. But for me, it's just going to be a futile exercise. I think the parliamentary process has terminated. I think they should just forget and start working very hard in order to dislodge the ANC in 2024.
What about the National Prosecuting Authority and other prosecutory organs of the South African state?
Yeah, but those are already dealing with the matter. They don't need the opposition anymore. As I speak to you, the NPA has been working on this matter. It must produce a report. The receiver of revenue must do the same thing, the public protector. In fact, the question that worries people is, why is it that these other agencies have been taking so long in order to hold the president accountable? So I just want to clear this one. Those ones don't need the opposition party. They just have to follow the law in terms of what they are allowed to do and hold him accountable. And that is I'm just trying to make a distinction between a parliamentary process and other processes that are outside of parliament. So the opposition parties still have an opportunity to agitate, and go to court and make sure that is held accountable. But let's be clear, the parliamentary process of impeachment has basically come to an end.
Thank you, Sello. Themba, the leader of the Democratic Alliance, the opposition party, Johnston Hyson, did compare this to former President Jacob Zuma's Nkandla scandal. Would you say there's any basis for a comparison? Is there a difference, and how does it differ?
There is a difference. A difference in the sense that President Ramaphosa is accused of very, very serious allegations, a multiplicity of possible transgressions, whereas with President Zuma it was more around the use of
state
public funds for his security upgrades. And I think the reality is that even if the state organs were to clear the president, I think at a political level, it's already an albatross around his neck. The politicking, the electioneering will revolve around it. More so that the president has been very shy, to be transparent, to be open about it, and so all manner of rumors and conjectures are flying around. It is definitely going to be his albatross, if at all he wins the national conference this coming weekend. I think he will be, in fact, it will be to the disadvantage of the ANC to have him going into the elections, because he already has a number of things beyond, beside the Phala issue. You have the Marikana issue, you have the CR17 bank account issues, you have the "I'll fall on my sword" statements around knowing who are misusing public funds within his party, but is prepared to protect the party at the expense of exposing those who are corrupt. So there are a whole range of things that actually...
Yeah, but can't you say the same about the party, that the party is protecting him at the expense of the South African people?
Well, no, correctly so.
Or
but
the parliamentarians in ANC are protecting him?
No, true. I mean, look, there's no doubt about that. But we live in an extremely liberal society where things are personalized or individualized. So it's more about the head of the organization than the organization itself. Although the damage, I mean, the standing of the ANC as a former liberation movement is very, very low. And the factions within the party are doing it no favor. So his own standing around these matters, more so that no one is dismissing the reports about the hundreds of millions of dollars from the Arab states that are supposed to have been brought into the country by some of his advisors. So there's a lot of clout that is going to be used. How that is going to resonate with the public, I think it is something that we may yet to see come 2024.
Thank you, Themba. Sello, Themba mentioned the all-important national conference. Now, the 55th National Conference of the African National Congress is scheduled to take place in just 2 days' time. How much of an effect will the events of the last few days have on the outcome of the Congress, and what are your own expectations?
Look, knowing the African National Congress and the factionalism that exists there, the delegates have long made up their mind who they're going to vote for, Remember, this is a party whose delegates are basically given money, they're given all sorts of things, and they're towing a line of a faction, in terms of a slave. I don't see this really having any real effect on the outcome of it, because the delegates have long made up. Those that are going for Zweli Mkhize are not going to change because of this, And those who are going to support Cyril Ramaphosa are not going to be affected by this, For me, it's going to have very insignificant influence on the outcome of the conference because of the nature of NC conferences, whereby by the time people come to the conference, they've already been paid some money or so, and the slates are very solid, and there's very little that you can do to change their mind.
Thank you, Sello. You did talk about, Themba, you did talk about President Ramaphosa's past. You talked about this Phala scandal being an albatross on his neck, and you mentioned Marikina and other things. President Ramaphosa came into office as a graft-busting savior after corruption-stained predecessor Jacob Zuma. How much reputational damage has this Phala scandal done to him?
It has done a lot of damage in terms of, breaking the facade of a corruption buster. And what has come through is the fact that he is as corrupt as the capitalist system that he represents. The only difference between him and the previous administration is that I think the previous administration were more at a primitive accumulation stage, whereas the current president operates more along the rules of the system. And I think there will be that contestation. You can see there's a very strong PR, and the moneyed class in our country are very much in favor of him. They control the media, they set the narrative. But with modern technology, even those who think differently to the status quo have a way of reaching out to the people. So it is going to be a fiercely contested terrain from all angles. But from where I'm seated, it is more around the fact that every time he has faced the test of this transparency, of this openness, of this honesty, he seemed to have stumbled.
Thank you, Themba. Now, finally, Sello, before I let you go, gentlemen, observers have said the process, what we've seen so far, is good for South African democracy, and it will strengthen the democracy because it's a test of its institutions. How significant has this process been, in your own opinion?
Well, personally, I think it's a good thing in a way, because, we've got this problem on the continent, of constitutions being violated by leaders and all that, I think South Africa has reached a stage where almost every section of the constitution has been tested, in terms of holding the leaders accountable. So my view is that although it put us almost near to the precipice, it is important that leaders in Africa are put to the stand, are held accountable, to the extent that they must know that they can't do things with impunity. So my view is that where some section of our constitution, in this case, has been tested, because it's for the first time that there is a possibility of an impeachment of the president. So I would say good for South Africa. He has survived it because his party has got a large majority in parliament. But all other subsequent presidents will know that impeachment is a possibility if you violate the constitution.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of the program. Themba Godi, President of the African People's Convention, and Sello Lediga, political columnist, both joining from Johannesburg, South Africa. Do appreciate your insight and contributions to the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're watching The Conversation on News Central Television. When we return from the break, the United States sanctions 4 individuals, including the son of Zimbabwe's President Emmerson Mnangagwa Jr. We'll be looking at the implications of that and more when we return from this break. Do stay with us as The Conversation